The cameras were already waiting when Kouri Richins entered the courtroom. Reporters lined the hallways. Deputies stood near the doors. Every movement she made was being watched closely because by then her case had already become national news. Then came the moment people couldn't stop talking about. She laughed, relaxed, casual, almost disconnected from the seriousness of the charges hanging over her head. And those charges were severe. Prosecutors accused the 33-year-old mother of 3 of murdering her husband, Eric Richins, using fentanyl inside their Utah home. If convicted, she could spend the rest of her life in prison. To the public, Kouri Richins was known as a grieving widow, a woman who had spoken openly about loss and healing after the sudden death of her husband in March 2022. She talked about helping her sons cope with losing their father. Then she published a children's book. The book, titled Are You With Me?, centered around a child coping with the death of his father while believing his dad still watched over him from heaven. The cover showed an angelic father figure standing protectively above his children. Many readers found it emotional, heartwarming even. While Kouri presented herself publicly as a mourning wife, investigators were quietly uncovering evidence pointing toward something far darker: text messages, deleted phone data, massive debt, secret relationships, life insurance policies, and eventually fentanyl. The case against Kouri Richins would become a complicated story built almost entirely through timelines, digital evidence, financial records, and witness testimony. Prosecutors believed the image she presented to the world was carefully constructed, not truthful. But long before courtroom cameras focused on her reactions, there was a marriage already collapsing behind closed doors. And according to people close to Eric Richins, he had allegedly started fearing something was wrong long before he died. Because on the night of March 3, 2022, what began as a celebration inside the Richins' home would end with a husband dead in his bedroom. And investigators would soon discover that his death was anything but natural. On the night of March 3, 2022, the Richins family home in Utah was supposed to be filled with celebration. According to investigators, Kouri Richins had recently finalized a major real estate deal involving a luxury mansion in Heber City. The property reportedly included a massive guest house and sat on nearly 10 acres of land. If everything worked out, the profits could be enormous. That evening, Kouri, her husband Eric Richins, and Eric's mother gathered together at the family home. To outsiders, it looked like a normal family night. Eric was known as a successful businessman and devoted father. Friends described him as hardworking, outdoorsy, and heavily involved in his children's lives. He coached sports teams, loved hunting, and operated a stonemasonry business that reportedly generated substantial income. Nothing about that night suggested it would become the center of a future murder investigation. At some point during the evening, prosecutors say Kouri prepared Eric a Moscow Mule cocktail. According to court testimony, she brought the drink upstairs to their bedroom while Eric relaxed on the bed. Later, Kouri claimed she went to sleep in one of her children's rooms because the child had been having nightmares. Then came the early morning hours. Around 3 a.m., Kouri told investigators she returned to the bedroom and found Eric unresponsive. Cold to the touch, she claimed she attempted CPR before calling emergency services at approximately 3:22 a.m. First responders rushed to the home and attempted life-saving efforts, but Eric Richins was already dead. At first, the death appeared sudden and tragic, but investigators quickly noticed details that raised concerns. According to testimony later presented in court, physical evidence at the scene allegedly did not fully match Kouri's description of trying to revive her husband. Then toxicology results arrived, and everything changed. The medical examiner determined Eric died from fentanyl intoxication. Authorities stated the amount discovered in his system was extremely high, several times above the lethal level. Toxicology reports also suggested the fentanyl had been ingested orally. Investigators immediately began asking difficult questions. How did a healthy 39-year-old father ingest a deadly amount of fentanyl inside his own home? And why? At first, Kouri publicly continued portraying herself as a devastated widow grieving an unexpected loss. But according to prosecutors, what happened after Eric's death only deepened suspicion. She reportedly closed the luxury mansion deal shortly afterward. Then came parties, behavior that Eric's family allegedly found disturbing so soon after his death. But what investigators uncovered next would become even more alarming. Because according to prosecutors, this may not have been the first attempt on Eric Richins' life. 2 weeks before Eric Richins died, prosecutors say something happened that would later become one of the most disturbing parts of the case. It was Valentine's Day 2022. According to court documents, Kouri Richins brought Eric his favorite sandwich from a local restaurant and left it inside his truck with a love note. At first, it looked thoughtful, but prosecutors allege that shortly after eating the sandwich, Eric experienced a terrifying medical reaction. According to testimony, he broke out in hives and began struggling to breathe almost immediately. The symptoms became so severe that Eric reportedly used one of his son's EpiPens to stop the reaction. He also consumed large amounts of Benadryl before eventually passing out for several hours. When he woke up, prosecutors say Eric made a chilling statement to someone close to him. He allegedly believed his wife had tried to poison him. At the time, there was no murder investigation. Just a husband privately expressing fear inside a marriage prosecutors later described as financially and emotionally collapsing. According to court testimony, prosecutors allege Kouri contacted her alleged drug source again only days later. This time, investigators claim she complained that the previous pills were not strong enough. She allegedly requested something stronger. Then detectives uncovered text messages they believed revealed motive. One message, allegedly sent to a man prosecutors identified as Kouri's romantic partner, read, "Life is going to be different, I promise. Hang in there until Friday." Friday was March 4th. By then, Eric Richins would be dead. To investigators, the timeline began forming a disturbing pattern. Yet, prosecutors still needed to answer the biggest question in the case. Why would Kouri Richins allegedly want her husband dead? As investigators dug deeper into the Richins marriage, they uncovered financial records, loans, insurance policies, and secret transactions that prosecutors believed revealed a powerful motive. Because behind the image of a successful Utah family, investigators say the finances were spiraling toward disaster. To friends and neighbors, the Richins family appeared successful. Eric Richins operated a profitable stonemasonry company in Utah and was known as a hard-working provider devoted to his 3 sons. Meanwhile, Kouri Richins was building a growing real estate business, flipping luxury homes during Utah's booming housing market. From the outside, they looked financially secure. But according to prosecutors, the reality behind closed doors was very different. Court testimony later revealed investigators believed Kouri's business expansion had created enormous financial pressure. Properties were being purchased rapidly, loans were stacking up, and prosecutors allege much of it was happening without Eric fully understanding the extent of the situation. According to reports, Kouri allegedly used power of attorney documents connected to Eric to secure major loans, including a $250,000 home equity line of credit tied to the family residence. When Eric allegedly discovered what was happening, the marriage reportedly began breaking apart. Eric became increasingly concerned about money and trust inside the relationship. Prosecutors say he eventually met with divorce attorneys and estate planning lawyers in late 2020. Then he quietly began protecting his assets. Eric reportedly created a living trust designed to safeguard his estate for his children. Instead of placing control with Kouri, he assigned authority to his sister. He also changed important life insurance beneficiaries. Because prosecutors allege Kouri had purchased multiple life insurance policies connected to Eric over the years, totaling nearly $2 million in potential benefits. Then investigators uncovered another alarming allegation. In January 2022, prosecutors say Kouri attempted to change one of Eric's insurance policies so she would become the sole beneficiary. But Eric reportedly received notification of the change and reversed it immediately. According to court testimony, Kouri allegedly owed nearly $4 million in debt by late 2021. Prosecutors argued she was under massive financial strain, while Eric's estate was potentially worth millions. But money was not the only issue investigators uncovered, because as detectives continued examining Kouri's personal life, they allegedly discovered another secret hidden behind the marriage. An affair. As investigators dug deeper into the months leading up to Eric Richins' death, prosecutors say they uncovered evidence suggesting the Richins marriage was already emotionally broken long before March 2022. According to digital evidence presented in court, Kouri Richins had allegedly been communicating with a romantic partner for months before Eric died. Phone records reportedly showed frequent calls, daily text messages, and ongoing conversations stretching back into 2021. Court testimony alleged Kouri privately told people she felt trapped in her marriage. One text allegedly sent to her lover read, "I'm in love with a man that's not my husband." Another message would become even more important to the prosecution's case. Shortly before Eric died, then came another message. "Life is going to be different, I promise. Hang in there until Friday." To prosecutors, the wording and timing were impossible to ignore, but investigators discovered something else that raised even more questions: a vacation booking. According to court records, Kouri allegedly reserved a 5-night romantic trip to the Caribbean scheduled for April 2022, just weeks after Eric's death. Prosecutors claimed the reservation was for Kouri and an unidentified man. To the state, the timeline suggested Kouri was already planning a future beyond her marriage. But the affair evidence was only part of what investigators uncovered. When detectives examined Kouri's digital history, they allegedly found internet searches that prosecutors argued showed consciousness of guilt. Searches about deleted iPhone messages. Searches about permanently removing information. Then there were the deleted messages. Digital forensic analysts testified that numerous communications had allegedly been erased from devices connected to Kouri during the months surrounding Eric's death. Some of those deleted conversations, prosecutors claimed, involved her housekeeper, the same woman investigators believed connected Kouri to fentanyl pills. Court testimony confirms that the housekeeper eventually admitted to supplying fentanyl on 2 separate occasions in February 2022. One delivery allegedly happened days before Valentine's Day. The second allegedly occurred less than a week before Eric died. By this point, prosecutors believed they had assembled a devastating timeline. In the months after Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins publicly presented herself as a grieving mother trying to rebuild her family's life after tragedy. To many people watching from the outside, she appeared convincing, soft-spoken, emotional, sympathetic. Then, in March 2023, exactly 1 year after Eric's death, Kouri published a children's book titled Are You With Me? The story centered around a young boy struggling to cope after losing his father. Throughout the book, the child wonders whether his dad can still see him from heaven. Yes, he was. The father figure, illustrated with angel wings, continued watching over his children, comforting them through grief and loss. The book immediately drew attention locally because readers believed it reflected Kouri's own experience as a widow, raising 3 boys after losing their father unexpectedly. In April 2023, Kouri appeared on a local Utah program promoting the book. Sitting calmly on camera, she spoke about grief, motherhood, and helping children emotionally survive the death of a parent. She talked about keeping Eric's memory alive inside the home, cooking his favorite meals, helping the boys feel spiritually connected to their father. To viewers, it looked like the story of a woman trying to heal after devastating loss. While Kouri was appearing on television, investigators were already building a murder case against her behind the scenes. Phone records had been analyzed, financial records reviewed, witnesses interviewed, and prosecutors believed the evidence pointed toward intentional poisoning. Then everything changed. On May 8, 2023, police arrested Kouri Richins. She was charged with aggravated murder and multiple drug-related offenses connected to fentanyl distribution. Television clips of Kouri discussing grief were suddenly replayed beside news reports accusing her of murdering her husband. But the most explosive discovery may have come after her arrest. Because sitting in jail awaiting trial, Kouri wrote something they believed revealed even more about the night Eric died. While awaiting trial inside Summit County Jail, Kouri Richins allegedly began writing a document prosecutors would later describe as deeply incriminating. The pages were reportedly discovered during a jail search. At the top of the document was a title, "Walk the Dog." The writing contained details connected to the day Eric Richins died. Court filings described references to timelines, movements inside the house, and descriptions involving what Eric consumed before his death. Investigators believed the document sounded less like fiction and more like a personal account. But Kouri strongly denied that interpretation. During recorded jail phone calls with her brother, prosecutors say Kouri insisted the writings were simply part of a fictional novel she was creating called To Hell and Back. She allegedly argued that although parts of the story drew inspiration from her life, the events themselves had been altered for dramatic effect. At one point, she reportedly stated, "None of this can be used against me. This is only a book." Prosecutors disagreed completely. Investigators believed portions of the writings suggested attempts to influence testimony and communicate information to potential witnesses outside jail. The issue quickly became another major courtroom battle. Defense attorneys filed motions attempting to prevent the writings from being introduced as evidence at trial. At the same time, tensions between prosecutors and the defense continued growing more intense. Then another major complication emerged. In May 2024, one of Kouri's original defense attorneys withdrew from the case, citing what court documents described as an irreconcilable situation. New attorneys were appointed, hearings were delayed, and as the legal battle intensified, prosecutors continued strengthening their case through digital evidence and financial testimony. But then something unexpected happened. One of the witnesses tied to the alleged fentanyl supply chain suddenly changed his story. This became one of the most important developments in the entire case. Because if the prosecution could no longer directly connect fentanyl to Kouri Richins, their entire theory of murder could begin falling apart. As prosecutors prepared for trial, one of the biggest questions in the case remained unanswered. Where exactly did the fentanyl come from? According to the state's theory, Kouri Richins allegedly obtained fentanyl pills through her housekeeper shortly before Eric Richins died. Investigators claimed the housekeeper admitted she received the pills from a man named Robert Crozier before passing them to Kouri during two separate transactions in February 2022. One alleged delivery reportedly occurred days before Valentine's Day. The second allegedly happened less than a week before Eric's death. To prosecutors, the testimony helped establish a direct connection between Kouri and the drugs they believed killed her husband. But in 2024, the case suddenly took a dramatic turn. According to defense filings, Robert Crozier later recanted key portions of his earlier statements. When interviewed again, Crozier allegedly told prosecutors he never supplied fentanyl to the housekeeper at all. Instead, he claimed the substance involved had actually been OxyContin. He also reportedly stated that during his earlier conversations with detectives, he had been detoxing and struggling mentally, making his original statements unreliable. The defense immediately seized on the development. Kouri's attorneys argued the prosecution's entire fentanyl timeline was now weakened. If the state could not directly establish fentanyl moving from Crocia to the housekeeper and eventually to Kouri, then prosecutors no longer had a reliable chain connecting her to the fatal drugs. They pushed for reconsideration of Kouri's bail. They argued there was insufficient evidence to keep her jailed, but prosecutors pushed back hard. They argued the recantation came years after the original events, and that jurors could still reasonably believe Crocier's earlier statements given closer to the alleged crimes. Judge Richard Mrazek ultimately denied bail again. In his ruling, he acknowledged the witness's recantation, but emphasized that prosecutors still possessed substantial supporting evidence. The alleged financial motive, the deleted messages, the internet searches, the insurance disputes, and the Valentine's Day incident. To the court, the overall picture remained serious enough for the case to proceed. Then came the preliminary hearing in August 2024. For the first time, prosecutors publicly presented the full structure of their case in detail. Detectives testified about the investigation. Digital forensic experts explained deleted phone data. Financial experts walked through millions of dollars in alleged debt and questionable transactions. And prosecutors finally revealed exactly how they believed Eric Richins was killed. Not through food, but through a Moscow Mule cocktail allegedly laced with fentanyl. By early 2026, the case against Kouri Richins had become one of the most heavily followed murder trials in America. For years, the public had watched the story unfold through courtroom hearings, digital evidence, and endless media coverage. What began as the sudden death of Eric Richins inside his Utah home had evolved into a massive criminal case involving fentanyl poisoning, financial fraud, life insurance disputes, and deleted messages stretching back months before Eric's death. When the trial finally began, prosecutors laid out the same theory they had been building since 2022. According to the state, Kouri Richins was drowning in financial pressure, involved in an affair, and desperate for a different life. Prosecutors argued that Eric's death was not accidental but carefully planned. They pointed jurors back to the timeline: the Valentine's Day incident, the alleged fentanyl purchases, the messages about wanting Eric gone, the insurance policy disputes, the deleted communications, and finally the Moscow Mule prosecutors believed carried the fatal dose of fentanyl. The defense fought back aggressively. Kouri's attorneys argued there was no direct eyewitness proving she administered the drugs. They challenged witness credibility, questioned parts of the digital forensic evidence, and argued prosecutors had built the case around assumptions and circumstantial interpretations. But after weeks of testimony, forensic evidence, and emotional courtroom arguments, the jury reached its decision. In March 2026, Kouri Richins was found guilty of murdering her husband, Eric Richins. She was also convicted on multiple additional charges connected to attempted murder, insurance fraud, and forgery tied to the broader financial investigation surrounding the case. The courtroom that once watched her laugh during early hearings now watched as the verdict was read aloud. Then came sentencing. In May 2026, Judge Richard Mrazek sentenced Kouri Richins to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For Eric's family, the conviction marked the end of years of grief, suspicion, and legal battles. Relatives who had long believed Eric feared for his life before his death finally saw the woman prosecutors accused held fully accountable in court. For the public, the verdict transformed the case from shocking accusation to confirmed conviction. The grieving widow, the children's author, the television interviews, the smiling courtroom appearances. All of it would now forever be tied to one conclusion reached by a jury. Kouri Richins murdered her husband. And with that verdict, one of the most disturbing modern true crime stories involving marriage, money, betrayal, and deception finally reached its conclusion. The case of Kouri Richins is now closed, but the questions and disturbing details surrounding it will likely be remembered for years to come. This is Crimson Herstory. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on the verdict. And as always, thank you for watching.